met Kevin and Kevin, whoever this is, I'm really not sure, and maybe you've even met Clay Cat. You may have also seen Clover, tiny first prototype Clover, and if you've been watching recently, you may have even seen this friend. But what you haven't seen yet is me make a clay doll that I feel really good about and really happy with. But I know I can do it. Hi, welcome to the Teeny Tinkers channel. I make ball jointed dolls, and craft related content. I have been sculpting for a couple years now. I moved mostly into the digital format about a year and a half ago, and this is because digital dolls, number one, it's so much nicer to just be able to close it up and put it away until you feel like coming back to it. Big bonus. It's a really good idea for me to be able to have a digital backup of the doll I'm working on. You know, so if the master breaks, then it's okay. However, there's always been something really nice about sculpting with actual clay in your actual hands and feeling the textures and trying to make it smooth. It's its own challenge all in itself. Digital art and traditional art both have space in this hobby and in art in general. But I really wanted to make it a personal mission that this year I'm going to complete a clay doll that I am very, very happy with. As happy with as I have been with any of my digitally sculpted dolls. Now, whether or not I would ever actually have this doll cast is up in the air, and I also don't know if I could trust the postage system to not break my baby or lose them. But I still want to make the doll. I still want to do it. And I think I know what I've been doing wrong and what I can do better. So if you would like to come along with me on this process of this year completing a clay doll that I am very happy with, is smooth and beautiful, and is everything I want in a BJD that I make, stick around. This is going to be a whole new series. I know I've done polymer clay dolls in the past. The videos are going to be multiple parts the same way that when I sculpt a doll digitally, the same attention I've given that is what I'm going to give to this. So I guess for today's video, what we're going to be doing is the torso. Just the torso. Literally just from the hips to the neck. That's what's happening. I feel like it's the central part of a BJD. I think reasonably within this video, I can get the whole torso done. As well, I am going to be making this a small doll. I'm not sure if I'm leaning towards 6th scale or 1/5 scale. So these would be examples of 5th scale dolls. 6th scale would be more in this range. I find the 6th scales really hard to work with clay that small, but I think a 5th scale is a nice compromise. That's enough talking. Let's go get the clay warmed up and start sculpting. All right, so here I am once again. I've fallen to pieces, but yeah, the first thing we're gonna do is take a drink of coffee. I have a covered coffee this time. I always have coffee, but if you have an open coffee and you're sculpting, it's questionable. But got my coffee. And then I've also got what I'm gonna be doing to make the base. I like to make my bases out of floral foam. It is a freaking mess. It is the messiest thing ever. But it's not horrible. And by using a form or a base, it number one means you're not using 80 pounds of clay, which is very expensive and very heavy, but also it means that it's a lot easier to hollow out for channels and stuff. If you don't have a base, you have to like try and drill all these. It's not a good time. So we're gonna make a base. A lot of people will use tin foil or like stuff like that. I like floral foam because when you go to empty out the doll, number one, cutting into it is really easy. When you use tin foil and you're cutting into it, it's hard because you're cutting into basically metal. And then B, when you want to get rid of the stuff, you run. If it's polymer clay, if it's air dry clay, do not do this. But if it's polymer clay, you can put it in the water and it will dissolve the floral foam, and it's a nice, even, yeah. Cons are it's bouncier than making a base out of foil, which means it can be a little finicky or it can be harder to get things smooth or to sit symmetrically and stuff. It's a con. And then the other con is it's powdery and gets everywhere. It's super messy. It's gross. I wrap mine in saran wrap. Is it advisable to cook saran wrap? Not really, but if it's inside the polymer clay, it kind of just separates from the floral foam and just like, sometimes it doesn't even melt, but if it's really low temperature, but if it does, it's like, I don't know, it's way better. But anyways, we're gonna take this floral foam block. Now this is way more than I will need. Like I said, I'm trying to make a 5th scale doll. So yeah, I also realized the other thing, it just occurred to me. The other thing I always need to do, and I never actually do, is use a blueprint. I have cardboard, that's gonna be big enough. I'll go get a cardboard and make a blueprint real quick. Okay, so this is the blueprint I made up. Is it perfect? No, but at least this time I'll be able to follow a semblance of scale. There's also no side view. I'm not concerned. It's more about the proportions. I always end up with these like really long-armed dolls, or like, they always end up smaller than I meant to or bigger. So hopefully with this, I can keep it generally in the same size. I did also grab, these are some like really old prototype thigh peanuts I had been working on like 2 years ago. And that's just so when I sculpt, I have like a placeholder I can put in place of the thigh peanuts. Because I can use like beads for the shoulders to make the balls and hold them, but I'm going to use these to, yeah. Okay, so anyways, we're now going to grab our floral foam. And I think the torso core, it's a little longer, kind of like the same length as this. So I'm just gonna cut it maybe about this much off and then shape it a little bit. I don't want it to be too thick, but you can always whittle it down more, so. A vacuum is in my future. Okay, so this is the right height, I think. If you kind of compare, because I don't need the neck built in as much. That's pretty easy to kind of stick something in there to like hit the foam and make that opening. But I do want to make sure it's long enough. I also don't need it this wide, so I'm just going to cut down. This stuff is so messy. Okay, let's just go ahead and make it. Should I just make it an hourglass? That might be the easiest way to do it. So this is our core. Welcome. I'm just gonna cover it in saran wrap. You don't need a lot of this, and the like fibers from the foam will like make it unsticky really quick. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, you don't need a lot. Like that's enough. I did not need that whole big piece. Here we go. A core. Absolutely beautiful. We're done. Okay. I do have some clay here. I'm gonna go ahead and soften that up. And then I'm going to just roll it out and put a base covering on this. And I will show you what I will do from there. All right, so this is what it looks like so far. It's just like a little block, but there's actually very little clay on this so far. The one thing I'm going to do before I give it its first bake is I'm gonna add a little more heft to the top and bottom for the hips and the shoulders. And I'm going to try and press some hips into it once there's more heft on there. If I hold it up over the blueprint, it's still giving me plenty of room to add hips into the bottom, so it shouldn't have to push right into the clay. And then I've got plenty of room at the top to add shoulders again. If I had to push it into the base, it would be a lot more difficult and messy and a pain in the butt, but I don't have to, so I'm not gonna. And again, laying it over the blueprint so we don't mess it up. I've still got some space on the waist to add more if I want. The groin is hitting where it needs to, and the shoulders are a little low, but I guess actually if I do this, that's correct. I'm gonna get the hips in there so that I can make that shape and kind of block that out. But these have like little holes in them, so I'm just gonna put saran wrap. This plastic wrap is honestly trying to take me out. I'm kind of just squeezing the clay over top to make it like hug the pieces. If it gets in the little cracks, we'll fix it after because, yeah. Okay, we don't want it too thin though. I don't want it to like cover too much of the hip. You can kind of see what's happening. The hips I think are gonna have to cut up higher because in order for movement, like these are not great joints. That's why they're, but if we need it to come to like here, it's gonna get blocked. So I'm gonna just press this up. I want the joints to kind of sit at almost the same angle, or the same angle ideally. I think she needs to be a little longer torso. All right, a little better. There's no neck obviously yet, but you can put that here. And I can see that the shoulders need to go here. So, okay, I've also got these sculpting tools that have balls on them. So I think I'm just gonna use those because those beads are not anywhere near big enough. Because it's clay, I would prefer if she's got some heft to her. But yeah, I'm just kind of pulling the clay up around the ball. And I like that I'm hitting, the foam. I'm actually going to make sure that I hit the foam everywhere. Just that way, it's a lot easier to carve out channels if you already have like kind of an entry point to them. I realize when I'm making these videos, a lot of the times I'm doing them very much like how-to videos, but like this is my first time going through like and doing it like properly. I'm figuring it out as I go. So please don't like take me too seriously. And if you don't do it like this, that's okay. Just know that I'm figuring it out at the same time as you. So I think this is a pretty nice shape. Very big hips. I like big hips. I think they're pretty. I think she's going to be very hourglass when she's done. That's the look. Maybe slightly smaller chested than hourglass, maybe leaning pear. And finally, I'm just going to take some soft clay, some of the stuff I cut out of like the doll, and I'm going to just make a neck. Okay, I'm going to do this again because the neck, I also have to pull it down onto the doll, so I need it to. Okay, I'm going to go from here. This looks really, actually that looks like the appropriate length. I don't know what to call that tube thing. I'm going to go on the top and poke. And I'm just gonna find that foam so I can see it through there. I think that's a pretty decent sized neck hole. And I'm just going to splay this out. Let me grab a little, it's too big still. Just like these little ball things, and I'm gonna just insert it into the neck piece here. And then I'll go up a size, and then up a size. I'm just kind of slowly stretching. And the reason for this is so that I can kind of spread it open and make like a trumpet. And then I can put it, and then spread it out. For that, I like to use, where is she? This little guy. So I'm basically just grabbing those edges, like those trumpet edges, I guess, and pulling them onto the torso. I'm trying to keep it pretty smooth too, because like I said, if what I've been doing before is just kind of like pushing through getting it done, and then when the base isn't very smooth, as I'm going, I'm learning that like if I want like an erase, if I want to push clay, I use one of the flat tip silicone tools. If I want like kind of a blur or blending, I'm going to use this pointy one, but very gently. And turning the doll to check symmetry. Like right now I can see the shoulder's a little higher than the other one, so it's got a little more clay, so I'm just gonna pull some of that down the body. I do know that once I cut this torso, I'm gonna have to add more clay to this bit to make the joint, but I'm honestly gonna say I'm pretty happy with that. Again, this is going to be the back. Once I add shoulder blades and a butt, it's going to dip in, I think, and then have a butt. Versus like in the chest, I need to add volume here, a little volume here, but then other than that, I'd want it pretty flat. I'm just going to check the size of the hip joints again. That looks pretty good. So I'm gonna go throw this in the oven at 225 for like 20 minutes. It doesn't have to be extremely hard. It just has to be hard enough that it's a lot more stable as a sculpting base for details. But girl, keep your hip up. Stay straight. All right. So yeah, let's go do that. All right, so fresh out of the oven and at the point where it's easiest to cut, well, it's still a little soft. It's not soft, but it's definitely softer than it will be in 30 minutes. It didn't crack, 10 out of 10 for that. So what I'm gonna do is just use a pencil first here to draw out where I want the chest piece to end. So what I'm going to do next is take this piece and I'm going to use the pencil to draw out where I want to cut for the joint, slowly cut it. And I'm going to build the joint for like the tummy ball pretty much right away and throw this back in the oven. And while that's in the oven, I can start sculpting details on the chest, which is going to be a lot of fun. And then we can get the torso out and it can be cooled down and I can start sculpting like the tummy details and making it beautiful and all that. What I think I'm going to do instead is make a ball and put it inside the torso, like inside the hips, so that it creates like a lip on the outside. That way I know that this chest piece, if I don't make it any wider where it meets the joint, should sit nice and flush. And then if I want to rotate the chest, I can kind of pop it out and move it around that way. That way I can ensure that the walls of the doll, because they're fragile, are going to be thick enough, and aesthetically it should still look pretty smooth. So yeah, I'm just gonna reference my blueprint here. Right there. Everything so far is lining up pretty well. Anyways, it looks like on the blueprint I've started the waist kind of here on both sides. So I can bring that drawing up there, and then I'm going to have this loop up. Okay, and then the same in the back. So now it's there. That looks better. Immediately happier with that. So I guess I'll go ahead and cut that. I think I'm going to go wet this and get the foam out, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have the pieces, and this is the chest piece. You can see how the like shape came right out. Like it was so easy. I've got a little piece of clay. There's some like stuff that got moved around. I'm gonna probably scrape some of that out, but really as long as the channels are big enough, I'm not too concerned. There's like just maybe some stuff that needs to be moved out of the channels. Obviously, I'm gonna have to kind of fix up how it sits together because of the joint or whatever, but, or when I do the joint. Okay, obviously because I'm cutting it, I'm gonna have to kind of add a little clay back, but I think I can just get away with doing that when I make the joint so it sits together. All right, so sad day, but now it's like, okay, yeah, that is the way to go. Then it'll be able to like All right, I feel better. I feel like I've made the right choice. And now I figure if I do it like this, I'm gonna have to scrape this out. But this should, oh yeah. Ooh, she ran away. Okay. So then I guess I could bring it like a lip of it forward. I guess I don't, actually I'm not gonna blend it yet. And then I can roll a sneaky snake to put around the outside. Okay. Onto the tummy ball, or onto the torso, like the hip piece, the butt piece, I don't know. It's no longer just a torso piece because it's all torso, like that. So I'm just gonna blend this and then I'll be back. Okay, so this is kind of where I've got this torso piece looking. In my coffee. That was a noise. But you can see that it's got a bit of a lip, which is what I was wanting. And then this is the front of the chest part, and it's just going to sit on there. I'm going to add some more, because this is nice and smooth now. I'm being very gentle with it, but I'm going to add a little more clay to the chest after, perhaps to finish that when I'm doing like final fittings and stuff. But for now, I'm just going to make the hole through the top, and then I have to make it so it's a hole to the inside, but it's also a slot, like from here to the back, and that's so that the doll can move freely this way and that way. So when it moves, again, being babying it, but it's gonna basically have to pop out of this lock, and then it should be able to lean to like there, and the same back here. And it's not too, it's not really like giving much of a gap, and I like that. So let's go ahead and add our hole. It's starting to cool off because I haven't actually like I've been using the tools and not my hands. All right. Now I'm just gonna cut the slit, and then that way the doll should be able to lean forward, and then we'll just do the same thing in the back. Okay, so just making sure this still fits, because every time you like push it stuff, it can end up displacing it. Okay, still looks good. I'm gonna go throw this in the oven, and then we're gonna come back and sculpt this guy. All right, so that's cooking. Time to sculpt the chest details. I'm gonna pull up an anatomy reference. There's something a little creepy about pulling up like topless references on your computer. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna look at is the shape of the shoulders. They look pretty good. The neck is leaning, so I guess I'll scrape a little bit of the neck. Look at that, how much that's leaning. I guess the first thing I notice is the tendons on the neck does. Okay, so the collarbone I'm gonna have here. So I'm gonna just press that, tear off a piece, fold it in half, put this the rest of the way, and it's going to come like almost to the sides of the neck. And then we're gonna do collarbones. Okay, so collarbone, relatively thin, but not nearly as thin as those tendons. And I know they look thick there, but they're gonna be stuff added to them. And it's gonna go basically from that tip of the shoulder to where that V met. It's looking very intense. No, neck, go back. I'm going to blend this all in. I just want to like lay it all out first. I think another thing I've got to do is scrape this out so that the arms can fit better. I think this is going to be too deep. So if you leave it too thick on the sides here, the arms can't lay flat. All right, and then we're gonna make some breasts. Try and make them the same, but you know, sisters, not twins. That looks pretty good. And I'm just gonna kind of give them a squeeze at the top. And kind of give them a slightly more breast shape. I'm just trying to press it on enough where it's not going to come flying off, because they really are trying to fly off. I'm going to have some collar or some shoulder blades. down on the outside. Okay, I'm just gonna go smooth all the edges down. Okay, so this is the chest all smoothed out. I think it's coming along. I haven't added any details like nipples or anything, or like back of the spine type things. I kind of want to add some like spine markings, but in other news, the torso has come out of the oven and it's starting to look good. I don't know, we're coming along a little bit, I think. I'm really liking the way the shoulder blades look. So I guess I'll start detailing, putting that to the side, and I'm gonna detail the butt now. But yeah, because, well, or the lack thereof. You know, side note, something that's really annoying is when you're looking for sculpting references and you search for male sculpting references, you get like normal like Blender files and stuff. When you look for female sculpting references, you get weight loss drugs. So don't love that. But anyways, back to what I was doing. I'm really trying to find something like a body type that's got like a bit of softness to it, but is still hourglass. I guess I can just find a soft body and Milo's crying, and just like adjust. All right, so I'm just going to do what I did with the chest pieces and just kind of drop in chunks where I see it needs them. A small tummy onto her. So we're gonna press this in like here. Looks pretty good. I'm not gonna get into putting like ribs and stuff, but she definitely needs a butt. You're gonna need a lot more clay than this, but I think I'm going to resist the urge to give her a giant butt, because like big butts are like a thing I do a lot in my dolls, except like Clover, like that body, pretty small, but Hollow has a big butt. Like that body had a big butt. So I have to smush this part down and then bring it kind of out, because otherwise it's not going to sit flush, and I don't want it to not sit flush. Maybe I should add a little more fat back into her waist, and then some fat over the hips, I think, because they come out like this, and I think if you had hips like that, you would have kind of like fat pockets. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and smooth all this out. I'll show you when it's done. So this is how the body looked like after smoothing. I went ahead and baked it, and this is where I'm gonna call it a day. I'm not gonna sand or anything right now, because I know that when I get into later steps, I'm going to be doing like major smooths and changes. So I'm really loving how the pieces fit together, and I definitely think sitting down and picking one piece, or in this case 2 pieces, to work on and focus on really let me do a better job. I was able to really just focus. I worked on these pieces for 5.5 hours today, and honestly, I think they look like it. I think I did a really good job. I'm actually really happy with it compared to past attempts with clay. I am so excited to see who this doll becomes, how this project goes, and to finally prove to myself that I can sculpt traditionally. As mentioned before, there is a place for both digital and traditional sculpting in this hobby and in the art world, but I just wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. Alright, if you're already subscribed to my channel, thanks so much for subscribing. If you're new here and like the content, I hope you'll consider subscribing. As always, I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye!